Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to the AJS TV channel. Today I'm doing a Premier League prediction for the season. I did one of these last year. It didn't go amazing, I'll put it that way. But this year I'm going to do much better, and you're going to see that hopefully. The first team I'm going to go in for bottom of the table is AFC Bournemouth. I'm sorry for any Bournemouth fans out there. You've just not invested very well. They've signed 3 players, 2 of them from the Championship, and one of them more of a second string West Ham player. Marcus Tavernier isn't a bad signing, but coming up from the Championship, I have experience with being a Villa fan. You need to get more players than that. I'm not impressed. Bournemouth will probably even beat us on the opening day of the season and still go down, just like Watford did last year. So I'm putting Bournemouth in 20th position. So for 19th place, I'm going for Fulham. Now, Fulham are known as the modern day yo-yo team. Each time they come up, they go down, then they go up, they go down. It's kind of funny. Them and Norwich haven't been in the same league as each other for years now because they always swap over. This time, Fulham have signed a few decent players. They got Bernd Leno, who's left Arsenal. That's a decent signing, I got to say. And Mbabu from Wolfsburg is also not bad. However, a bit like Bournemouth, not too many players. And I feel if you come up from the Championship, the difference between the Championship and the Premiership is massive. So you need more than just a few half-decent signings. So therefore, I am putting Fulham in 19th place. Alright, going for 18th. Now, this will shock a few people. But, you know, every single year, there is always a shock team doing really bad or really good. And my team to do really badly this year will have second season syndrome, and I'm going for Brentford. Now, just like Sheffield United, Brentford had a very good first season in the Premier League. However, I'm just saying, Ivan Toney didn't have a great season last year, and he may leave Brentford as well. I don't know where the goals are going to come from with Brentford, and I feel if they start the season poorly, they will be down there at the bottom of the table. Now, they did sign Ben Mee, and they actually signed Strakosha, the goalkeeper from Lazio. So they've got a few players who've come in, but I'm not impressed. Ben Mee got relegated last year. I do look at that Brentford side, and it's just painfully average. And I feel Brentford, I reckon a lot of people won't think they'll be this far down, but I just feel Brentford, I don't think they'll be good enough this season. Alright, going in for 17th place. Now, this will be the final of the 3 promoted teams. I think some people might feel as I'm being a little bit harsh here. You have to be at the top level. You have to have players that perform at the top level to be able to compete. And Nottingham Forest will do just about enough. And maybe that's Midlands bias. Maybe because they signed Jesse Lingard. I just feel, you know, all these 4 teams could easily go down. But Nottingham Forest, I just think will have that little bit of an edge over the rest of the teams in the bottom 3. And I do want them to do well. They've won 2 Champions Leagues. They're a historic club. I want them to be in the Premier League. And I think they'll just about scrape it. 16th place is going to Leeds United. It doesn't take a genius to figure out if you lose your best 2 players that you are going to struggle. Villa lost Jack Grealish. And we struggled. That's just one player. Calvin Phillips, I know he was injured for most of last season, but he's still a pivotal player of Leeds United. And Rafinha's goals literally kept them up in the Premier League last year. They have signed some players. And to be fair, they've made more signings than any of these teams down the bottom, which is the reason why I think they'll be so high up. But I'm still not overly impressed with Leeds. And I think in order for them to, in the future, build upon the Premier League table, they're going to have to possibly stick with the manager they have now and just continue to make more signings and get out the deadwood. Patrick Bamford, his season could be pivotal. I wasn't overly impressed with what I saw against Villa, but that is just one game. And he did score in pre-season. I've seen clips of that on Twitter. If he has a good season, maybe Leeds do pretty well. But if his goals dry up, they could be looking towards this part of the table. I don't think so, but that is a possibility. But for me, Leeds United will finish in 15th. Okay, the next team on the list, another side that barely scraped relegation last year, Everton. I think Everton won't be anywhere near as bad as last season, but for me to say they're going to be mid-table, I think is a very, very big stretch. They're not a bad side. I don't think Lampard is a terrible manager. I think he's painfully average, but he's not a bad manager. And I don't think I know this is considered relegation battle, but I think they're on the outskirts of it. Losing Richarlison might be a big issue, but they did get 60 million for him, which is way more than they should have. I think Lampard will do enough to keep them, not in a comfortable position, but I'd say lower to mid-table, upper relegation battle. I think is very fair, and a lot of people probably say that about Everton this season. All right, now we're coming into a lot of mid. I gotta say, loads of teams can fit this mid. And for 14th place, I think I'm gonna have to go a dodgy one. But Leicester, I'm sorry, but Leicester City losing Schmeichel, Jamie Vardy's 36 years old, potentially losing James Maddison. I worry about Leicester. Fofana as well may also leave as well. I think this could be a very bad season for Leicester City unless towards the very end of the transfer window they invest wisely. This could be horrible. Leicester have always been, as of the last 6 years, a very established Premier League side that have actually done very well. Got into like the Champions League places, fought around Europe. I think did pretty well in the Europa Conference last year. But Leicester City, I worry for them. I really do. I don't think they'll be poor enough to be dragged in a relegation battle, but I just don't see them doing well at all. And a lot of the Leicester fans don't like Brendan Rodgers for a reason, and he could actually get sacked this year. I think if they finish where I think they will, he will 100% be out the door. Maybe I'm wrong. Leicester fans do let me know, but I don't think you'll do anything this season that of note. And if anything, people are going to say, well, letting players go like that is probably the reason why you're going to be down the bottom of the table. Like I said, no relegation worries, but nowhere near the glory, nowhere near the the title-winning glory a few years ago. I think that is long gone for Leicester, and teams like West Ham have more likelihood of doing that these days. But yeah, I think Leicester will be there. 13th place then, I think I've been very nice on Southampton. I've seen a lot of people put them even in the bottom three. I don't think they'll be that poor, but Southampton are pretty much a mid-table side. They are probably the most mid-table side you can think of. I'm just not impressed. Hasenhüttl has never impressed me as a manager. They have a few talented players. Everyone knows how good James Ward-Prowse is. But I struggle to see where the goals come from for Southampton. Last year, Che Adams scored 7 Premier League goals. He was outscored by James Ward-Prowse, and I think most of those are free kicks, to be quite honest. But 7 Premier League goals for a striker is just not good enough. And I should know that. Danny Ings did that for Villa, and it wasn't good enough. So I think Southampton, although defensively they're not horrible, and they probably won't be near a relegation battle, but they just won't threaten remotely towards the Europa Conference. 12th place in the Premier League, and I gotta say, I think it's going to be Aston Villa. It does hurt me to say that, but from what I've seen in pre-season, I did make a video. Some people agreed, some people didn't, but we just look toothless going forward. A bit like Southampton, where are the goals going to come from? We've improved defensively. We've got in Kamara. I think Douglas Luiz is getting a new contract soon. Diego Carlos at centre-back. We got in Olsen as a backup for Emi Martinez. But that's all great, but that's defensive positions. Going forward, we've done nothing. Leon Bailey may act as a new signing with him coming back and having a great pre-season. If he can stay fit, that's great. But other than Bailey, I thought it was an absolutely shocking pre-season. And it showed just how much we need something new in our team. Maybe the introduction of Archer is what we need, but I'm just not excited. I'm really not. I'm very worried going into that Bournemouth game, and I think a lot of people are unfortunately deluded. I don't know. I'm just very, very worried going into this. Ollie Watkins has had a horrible preseason. Danny Ings hasn't been much better, although he's played a bit less. I'm just very, very worried, and I think 12th really isn't good enough for what the owners want or what the fans want, but I think it's more of a reality, to be quite honest. 11th place, this one is a bit easier for me. Wolves, they're not a bad side. I think they've got a decent manager. They've got a very good goalkeeper, but again, it's just very mediocre. Like, I don't really see much of Wolves. Don't scare me. I don't think Wolves scare anyone. And and they draw a lot of games. I think that's going to happen the very same again. 11th place, nowhere, like I said, nowhere near a relegation battle. But, just not enough. I don't think they're going to win enough games to put them near the Europa League. And I think maybe not a lot of people will argue here. 10th place, I'm going to go for Crystal Palace. I absolutely love Patrick Vieira. I think he's an amazing manager. I watched him in the flesh with Villa versus Palace last year. I thought their football was amazing. I know they don't have Conor Gallagher anymore, but they have an incredible side. And if they can build around Wilfried Zaha, I think they'll be a huge, huge threat this season. I think one of the biggest signings for me, Sam Johnstone. I've seen him at Villa a few years ago. He's a solid goalkeeper. And him coming out at Palace, even if he's a number 2, I think will be quite big for them. I very much rate Sam Johnstone. I think he could easily be the Palace keeper, but we'll have to wait and see. I think that's a half-decent signing. Palace already have a very good team, very well-established side. And they got quite unlucky with a few games last season where they probably should have won. I think back to the Arsenal game at the Emirates where they hammered them and still couldn't win. And that happens in football. But I feel like this time round, Patrick Vieira will turn those draws into wins. And they'll finish very nicely in 10th place. They could threaten for Europa. Maybe that's in a few years' time. But right now, I think Palace are a very, very good team. And they should 100% stick with Vieira. Because that path going forward will be very good for them. 9th place, I'm going for Brighton. I am literally Potter's biggest fan. He's an unbelievable manager. I want him to be the manager of England one day. I love his football. I love the way Brighton, every single year, they always seem to impress me. Last year they sold Ben White and it just didn't affect them at all. I thought they were still a very good side defensively. Villa did beat them, which is maybe weird to why maybe some of you think I put them so high. I think we even did the double over them. But outside those Villa games, ironically, I was actually very impressed with Brighton. I think they have a very good team. A lot of their players work very hard, and you need that in the Premier League. I think Potter has built a very good side. I think if Neil Maupay or Trossard can have slightly better of a season this year, I think they could well easily finish 9th place. I just realised I put the Europa Conference. I technically have to put the mid-table. I'm going to have to put a lot of teams in mid-table. Because I think there's the difference between mid-table and a relegation battle is massive. A lot of these teams, just like last year, will finish several points above the bottom 3, but still be nowhere near Europa Conference. 9th place for Brighton, I think, is more than fair. I think the Brighton fans would arguably take it. And yeah, I think they're not a bad side. 8th place. Now, this is no surprise to anyone. Newcastle have probably had one of the best transfer windows of any team in the Premier League. Nick Pope, top class goalkeeper. I was actually very gutted to see he went to Newcastle. And then Botman, the centre back from the French league. That's just unreal business. I gotta say, I worry Newcastle in a few years could be like a Manchester City. They're already building very, very well. They got an incredible fan base behind them. Of 8th place, yeah, I think they could be way higher than that as well. Eddie Howe managed to turn a team that looked destined to go down into a fairly comfortable mid-table finish. I don't know how he managed to do it. I think they were the first team to go that many games without winning and stay up. I can't remember how many games it was, actually. Eddie Howe still managed to pull them over the line. My only criticism of Newcastle, I just don't rate Chris Wood. I think Chris Wood is awful. And if they do rely on him again this season, I think that's where this more mid-table finish will come out. I don't rate him at all. I think that was a horrific waste of money. Some Newcastle fans agree. I know the true Geordie, he hates Chris Wood. And I think if any Newcastle fan is being real, like, he's just not a good striker. He just really isn't. I'm a Villa fan, so I know a bad striker when I see one. And he's just not really a goal scorer. Whether he just doesn't suit the system of Newcastle or not, I don't think he'll ever do well there. And eventually will probably leave there for like 10 million. But I think 8th place is not bad. I think a lot of Newcastle fans would take that. All right, going into the proper business part of the table, I'm going to have to go with West Ham. I like West Ham. I think David Moyes has done an unreal job, considering they were barely above Villa when we managed to stay up. after the whole COVID and goal line technology system. West Ham weren't much better than us, and they couldn't even beat us on the final day, which kept us in the Premier League. But since then, they have propelled themselves up the Premier League, and I think they are fully established as a Europa Conference side at the very minimum. Keeping Declan Rice is pivotal to that, and so far, I think he's still happy to be there. But if he decides to leave, I think West Ham could be in a bit of trouble. He's arguably one of England's best players. I think West Ham are very much reliant on him. Maybe Antonio can pick up some of the form that he had like last season. I think Jarrod Bowen is pretty much key to how well West Ham do. He had an absolutely unreal season last year. I think he scored like 12 goals. He was just incredible. For a winger, like that's unreal. Antonio had a great start to the season and then fell off. I think if he can just keep that up, even if he just didn't do as well as how he started last year, he just needs to be more consistent. And if he does that, West Ham will at least finish 7th, if not higher. But I think they are nailed on to be in a European competition next year. 6th, I'm being a little bit harsh, but I think it's going to be Man United. I didn't really see much of anything different when we played them in pre-season. I know it's pre-season before anyone tells me anything, but they look pretty much the same. Like Fred and McTominay are still there. They're trying to sign De Jong, and that probably won't even go through now. You just can't go into the new season with a pivot of Fred and Scott McTominay. It was horrible last year. It doesn't matter who the manager is. They're going to struggle. Ronaldo, a bit of a disaster, wanting to leave and probably won't now. May have unsettled the team a little bit. Because it's Ronaldo, he'll probably be allowed straight back into the team. He probably shouldn't though, if I'm going to be real. If a team had any balls, they wouldn't play him. That's just me being brutal about that. It's a bit disrespectful, I think, towards Man United and towards their supposed big picture going forward. But I don't know, he's 37, maybe he doesn't think he's going to win anything at United, but he's tied there for another year. And I think United will finish 6th. It won't be great for a lot of United fans. They won't appreciate it, but that is what is going to happen. Now, this is very interesting, and people will disagree. I think Chelsea will finish 5th. I am not impressed. I'm not impressed. They've signed a 31-year-old centre-back in Koulibaly. He's great in Serie A. Let's see how well he does in the Premier League. Sterling is a great signing, but Lukaku being such a disaster, going out on loan back in Inter, I just don't know where the goals are going to come from for Chelsea. The fact they said no to Ronaldo baffles me, because I think Sterling and Ronaldo could have had an unreal duo. But yeah, Kai Havertz, he performs in big games, but is not consistent. Timo Werner is laughable. Same with Pulisic. I think defensively they're fine. But going forward, I just don't think they're going to win as many games as they need to get in the Champions League. And there may be some questions about Tuchel. Who knows? I don't think 5th place for Chelsea is that far out of the imagination. I know it's a bit of a wild card, but I think Chelsea, I'm not impressed. They're trying to get Cucurella. They spent 20 million on Chukwuemeka, which that could be a whole new video itself. Chukwuemeka, unproven 18-year-old, who's never scored for Villa, barely ever started for Villa, and barely did anything for Villa, is apparently now worth 20 mil and 100 grand a week, but whatever. Cucurella is a decent left back for Brighton. 50 million though is a scam. I'm just being honest there. If you're spending 50 million on him, you are way overpaying. Man City didn't want to pay that. They could easily, but they don't want to pay that. Look at that. As well, I think the Chelsea should use that going forward, because like if City, who can more than afford it, don't want to pay that, then why do you want to pay that? He's a decent left back, but he's not worth it. Going into top 4 now, Arsenal have snuck in 4th for me. I gotta say, I am wrong about some things in football, and one of them is Mikel Arteta. I didn't think Arteta was good enough. I think he is. I think he's more than proved that. Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe had an unbelievable season last year. I think it's even more impressive after Saka's, the horrible end to the Euros. He managed to probably be Arsenal's best player last year. I think it's phenomenal. Even after Aubameyang, that scenario there, I think Arteta dealt with that perfectly. Letting Aubameyang leave, stripping him of captaincy, I think was the perfect way to manage that situation. Arteta gets full respect from me and will get top 4. I think the signing of Gabriel Jesus could be pivotal. My only worry is if he can replicate some of the goals he scored for City. The fact that City last year they had Jesus as a striker and didn't play him as one, it kind of speaks some volumes. But pre-season for Arsenal has been phenomenal. Winning 6-0 against Sevilla, that's a very impressive scoreline. I know it's pre-season. I know it might not mean anything, but you can't help but be impressed by that. And I think Arsenal will get top 4. Third, Spurs. I think out of every team, I know I've probably said this earlier, but Spurs have literally had the best transfer window possible. Bissouma, Villa wanted for well over a year, and we couldn't get it over the line. So it really hurts me to see him go to Tottenham. I think Spurs are going to do very well. Perisic is a very good signing, a little bit on the older side, but reliable, will score goals. Richarlison may be a bit too pricey for me, but for a very long time, Tottenham have always been reliant on Harry Kane as the sole striker. Like a few years ago when he got injured, they were having to play Moura there or even Troy Parrott, and it became a bit of a disaster for Spurs. So having Richarlison there as either backup or maybe starting in like a 4-4-2 or however Spurs want to play in the Premier League, I think will be good. I don't think there'll be a downside. Richarlison is reliable. I think they may have spent a bit too much on that reliability, but I think he'll still do very well for Tottenham. This is the important part of the table here. Liverpool or Manchester City. The two sides who are head and shoulders above everyone else in the Premier League by a mile. And I think it will be the exact same finish. City are just too good. Erling Haaland, I think jury's still out there. He could have a bad season. I just think, before anyone clowns me on that, Timo Werner scored 35 goals for Leipzig, went to Chelsea, you know the rest. Sancho, incredible season at Dortmund, went to United, you know the rest. I don't rate the German league, and I think Haaland could have a bad season. He missed sitters against, literally sitters plural, against Liverpool. However, I think Liverpool losing Mane is huge. I think it's way bigger than Liverpool fans want to admit. Mane was a phenomenal Liverpool player. I think you could arguably get in Liverpool's 11 of all time, to be honest. And I think that's going to be a big worry for them. They've signed Núñez, just like Haaland. Jury's still out. He did score. It was a tap-in though. I find it funny he took off his shirt in a Community Shield game, but whatever. I think whoever wins the league, it's down to how well Núñez and Haaland play. I know it may sound a bit cliche, but if Núñez gets 20 goals and Haaland gets like less than 10, I think there's your league winner. Haaland probably won't do that. I think a reasonable guess for Haaland is about 14 goals, which isn't a lot really. For considering how many, considering City will probably win the league, considering Haaland will get like 3 or 4 clear-cut chances a game, I don't think 14 is that great. I think that should be his minimum expectancy. But it does kind of come down to that. City playing with a striker might actually throw them off because they haven't played for one. They haven't played with one for a while. And I think there were little bits of that coming out in the Liverpool City game. But we'll have to wait and see. But there you go. That is my full prediction. Oh, I just realised I put 2 teams as the champion. That is my full Premier League prediction for this season. The last thing I'll touch upon, Villa, I just don't think we're going to do well this season. I've made that abundantly clear. Last year, I thought we'd get 7th and we finished 14th. Need I say more? But thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys for the opening game of the season. There will be a live stream for Aston Villa versus AFC Bournemouth, so please do watch that. And I want something. I want something good, man. I want to be proved wrong. Hopefully, I will, and we have a good season. But I just don't see it. Thank you all for watching. See you again soon. Peace out.